On the ground, don't move! I'm Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, United States Marine Corps. You have the wrong person.
Yeah, they all say that when they get caught.
You think we don't know why you're here? People like you don't just end up in houses like this. This is my home. I've lived here 9 years.
This is my home. I've lived here for 9 years. At 6:14 a.m. on a quiet Saturday in Ashburn, Virginia, four federal agents in tactical vests forced a black man face down onto his own driveway. The man was Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, an active-duty United States Marine with 26 years of service, 3 combat deployments, a Bronze Star with Valor, and a Purple Heart, honors pinned to a career most people couldn't survive, let alone build. He had been washing his truck in a USMC PT shirt and shorts when 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled up hard and fast, tires biting the curb. 4 ICE agents jumped out with weapons drawn before a single word was spoken. The lead agent, a senior field officer with a record that should have ended his career years ago, barked at Drummond to get on the ground. No names were confirmed. No warrant was produced. No questions were asked. They saw a black man standing in a nice neighborhood and decided he didn't belong. Inside the house, Drummond's young son, Elijah, stood at the front window watching his father. A man who had survived Fallujah gets slammed onto concrete by men who never once asked who he was. The agents forced Drummond's wrists behind his back and zip-tied them tight enough to leave marks that would be photographed at a hospital 3 hours later. What those agents didn't know, and hadn't bothered to find out, was that the man bleeding on the driveway held one of the highest security clearances in the Department of Defense, that phones at Marine Corps Base Quantico would be ringing within minutes, and that every second of what they were doing was being recorded by a neighbor's doorbell camera in crystal clear high-definition video that would eventually be played in a federal courtroom. Colonel Nathaniel Drummond was not just any Marine. He was 48 years old, with 26 years of active duty service that read like a blueprint for everything the military asks a person to become. He had 3 combat deployments. The first in Fallujah during some of the most violent urban warfare since Vietnam, the second in Helmand province during the height of the Afghan surge, and the third a classified special operations mission in East Africa that would never appear in any public record. He had earned a Bronze Star with Valor for actions under fire that saved the lives of 7 Marines in his unit. He had received a Purple Heart after taking shrapnel during an ambush that killed 2 men beside him. He had risen through the ranks with discipline and quiet authority, becoming one of the most respected officers in his command. At the time of the incident, he was serving as Deputy Director of Logistics at Marine Corps Base Quantico, one of the highest-ranking black officers in the installation's command structure. His wife, Dr. Simone Drummond, 45, was a trauma surgeon at a Level 1 trauma center in Washington, someone who had spent her career saving lives in operating rooms where seconds meant the difference between survival and death. They had built their home in the Ashburn neighborhood 9 years earlier, drawn by the schools and the quiet streets. Drummond coached Little League every spring. He organized a veterans breakfast at the local VFW hall on the first Saturday of every month, cooking eggs and pouring coffee for men and women who had served alongside him or before him. His neighbors didn't just know him, they trusted him. He was a man they called when the power went out or when someone needed a ride to the VA. He was the most respected person on that street. And on that Saturday morning, he was zip-tied and bleeding on his own property while his son watched from behind glass. The man who led the operation was Senior Field Agent Dale Kircher, 44, with 16 years inside ICE enforcement and removal operations. Kircher had built a reputation within the agency that should have raised alarms long before that morning. He was known among field teams as aggressive, efficient, and untouchable, a combination that, in practice, meant he did whatever he wanted and no one above him cared enough to stop it. Over the past 3 years, 83% of Kircher's targeted enforcement actions had involved black or Latino individuals living in predominantly white neighborhoods. 7 formal complaints have been filed against him for excessive force, 5 more for unlawful detention. Every single one had been internally reviewed and quietly dismissed with language like inconclusive findings or within operational discretion. Kircher learned the lesson men like him always learn when systems protect them instead of correcting them. He could keep going. His partner that morning was Agent Troy Skaggs, 31, just 4 years on a job and already molded in Kircher's image. Skaggs was eager, reckless, and loyal in the worst possible way. He never questioned a call. He never pushed back on a tactic. He laughed when Kircher laughed, moved when Kircher moved, and stayed silent when silence meant complicity. 2 other agents rode in the second SUV. Junior field officers who stayed near the vehicles and watched the whole thing unfold from the curb. They didn't intervene. They didn't speak up. They stood with their hands on their vests and let it happen, which later made them part of it in the eyes of federal investigators, reviewing every second of that morning. Nathaniel Drummond lay face down on the concrete of his own driveway, wrists pulled behind his back and zip-tied so tight the plastic bit into his skin. His voice was steady and controlled, the voice of a man trained to stay calm when everything around him was falling apart. "I'm Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, United States Marine Corps. I'm active duty. You have the wrong person." Kircher didn't look at him. He didn't pause. He didn't check. "Yeah," he said, "heard that one before." Skaggs crouched beside Drummond and patted him down aggressively, hands moving fast and rough across his PT shirt and shorts, as if a man washing his truck at dawn was concealing something dangerous. That was when the front door flew open. Elijah ran barefoot onto the driveway, screaming, "Dad, what are you doing to my dad?" Kircher spun toward the boy and pointed, "Get back inside now. Do not come out here again." The boy froze, eyes wide, chest heaving. A neighbor across the street, Franklin Oae, a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who had served 22 years in uniform, stepped off his porch and crossed the road. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. "That man is a colonel in the United States Marine Corps." Kircher's voice turned sharp. "Sir, step back or I will arrest you for obstruction." Another neighbor, 2 houses down, raised her phone and began recording. Kircher didn't notice. Seconds later, a silver sedan turned into the driveway. Dr. Simone Drummond stepped out, still wearing surgical scrubs from her overnight shift. She saw her husband on the ground, zip ties on his wrists, blood on his chin from where his face had hit the concrete. Her training kicked in before her fear did. She pulled out her phone and opened a voice memo. "I am Dr. Simone Drummond. I am observing a laceration to my husband's chin, bruising on both wrists, possible abrasion to his left shoulder. He is face down and restrained." She looked at Kircher. "Where is your warrant?" Kircher stepped toward her. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be detained." Simone didn't move. "Where is your warrant?" she asked again. And for the first time that morning, Kircher had no answer. Kircher finally offered a reason, though it barely qualified as one. He said they were executing a targeted enforcement action on an individual suspected of immigration fraud and identity theft. Someone allegedly living at that address under a false identity. The name he gave was not Nathaniel Drummond. It wasn't even close. The name belonged to a person who didn't match Drummond's age, his description, or any record tied to that property. Drummond, still face down with zip ties cutting into his wrists, said it again, "This is my house. I've lived here for 9 years. I am a United States citizen born in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a colonel in the United States Marine Corps. My military ID is in my wallet on the kitchen counter. You can verify everything in 30 seconds. Kircher didn't go inside, didn't send Skaggs to check, didn't radio anyone to run the name. He looked down at Drummond as if his words didn't matter and said, "We'll sort it out at the field office." Skaggs grabbed one arm. Kircher grabbed the other. They pulled Drummond to his feet and began walking him toward the SUV. His son stood in the doorway, tears running down his face, calling his father's name. Simone was still holding her phone, still recording, still demanding to see a warrant that didn't exist. Because there was no warrant. No judge had signed one. No probable cause had been established. No verification of any kind had been done before 4 armed federal agents rolled into a quiet Virginia neighborhood and dragged a decorated Marine colonel off his own property in front of his own family. By the time Kircher and Skaggs loaded Drummond into the back of the first SUV, at least 4 neighbors were recording on their cell phones. One woman across the street held her camera high from her porch, capturing the agents from a wide angle. A couple 2 doors down filmed from their front yard, close enough to pick up voices. Franklin Oae held his phone steady from the sidewalk, narrating under his breath what he watched unfold. But the most important footage came from a device none of the agents even noticed. A Ring doorbell camera mounted on the house directly across from the Drummond driveway had an unobstructed view of the entire scene. It captured everything from the moment the SUVs pulled up to the moment Drummond was placed in the vehicle. Every shove, every command, every second of a child watching his father get taken. And here was the detail that later became the center of the federal investigation. Kircher's body camera was not activated. Skaggs' body camera was not activated. Neither of the two junior agents by the second vehicle activated theirs. All four agents were equipped with body-worn cameras. All four were required under federal policy to activate them during any enforcement action, and all four chose not to. When investigators later pulled activation logs, they found Kircher had failed to record on more than 60 prior enforcement actions over the past 3 years. Skaggs had 23 gaps in his own record. The pattern wasn't accidental. It was habitual. And in the eyes of federal prosecutors, it suggested something worse than negligence. It suggested these agents knew exactly what they were doing, and they didn't want it on tape. What they didn't count on was a neighborhood full of people who refused to look away. Simone Drummond stood in the driveway, watching the SUV pull away with her husband in the back seat. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was already moving. She scrolled through her phone, found the number she needed, and called Nathaniel's commanding officer at Marine Corps Base Quantico directly. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. She told him everything. For ICE agents, no warrant, no correct name, no identification check, her husband zip-tied and bleeding on his own driveway, their son watching from the door. Within 90 seconds of that call ending, the information was moving up the chain of command at a speed only the military understands when one of its own has been touched. An active duty Marine colonel with top secret clearance had been detained on his own property without a warrant, without verifying his identity, and without even using the correct name. Within 8 minutes, calls were being made from Quantico to the Pentagon, from the Pentagon to the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General's office, from DHS to IC Field Command in Washington. A JAG attorney was dispatched from Quantico with orders to locate Drummond and ensure his immediate release. The Marine Corps does not make polite requests when one of its colonels is dragged away in zip ties. The message moving through every channel that morning was direct. Release him immediately or this becomes a federal incident within the hour. The people receiving those calls understood exactly what that meant. But by the time the calls reached the right desks, Dale Kircher had already made his next mistake. Despite the phones now burning through federal lines, Kircher transported Drummond to the IC field office as if nothing had changed. He walked him through the back entrance, past two supervisors who didn't ask a single question, and placed him in a holding cell. The zip ties were removed and replaced with metal cuffs. Drummond sat on a steel bench in a PT shirt, shorts, and no shoes. The cell was cold. The fluorescent lights were constant. For 2 hours and 47 minutes, a decorated Marine colonel sat in federal custody without being read his rights, without being offered water, and without being allowed to make a phone call. He asked twice to speak to someone in charge. Both times he was told to stay where he was. He asked the name of the individual they were looking for. No one answered. He told them again who he was. No one checked. It wasn't until a shift supervisor returning from break finally decided to run the name Nathaniel Drummond through the system that everything came apart. The screen lit up with a record that should have been pulled before the SUVs ever left the parking lot. United States citizen, born in Charlotte, North Carolina, active duty United States Marine Corps, rank Colonel, current duty station, Marine Corps Base Quantico, security clearance, top secret. The supervisor stared at the screen, then looked down the hall toward the holding cell, where a man in workout clothes sat cuffed to a bench. The person they had actually been looking for didn't match Drummond in name, age, physical description, or address history. Not one detail. Federal investigators would later describe the operation as catastrophically negligent intelligence work and racially motivated target selection. The supervisor picked up the phone, his hand shaking. Not because he felt sorry for the man in the cell, but because he understood what was about to come down on everyone who had touched the case. They released Drummond without apology. No one from the team that arrested him was present. Kircher had clocked out while Drummond was still sitting in the holding cell, as if the morning had been routine, as if dragging an innocent man from his own driveway was just another shift. A junior supervisor whose name Drummond would never remember handed him a clear plastic bag containing his wallet, his watch, and his house keys. There was a miscommunication, the supervisor said, not meeting his eyes. That was the only explanation offered to a man who had spent nearly 3 hours cuffed in a federal holding cell for the crime of being black in his own neighborhood. Simone was waiting in the parking lot. She didn't speak when he got in the car. She didn't need to. She could see the bruises ringing both wrists where the zip ties had been pulled too tight. She could see the laceration on his chin, still raw and dark with dry blood. She watched him lower himself into the seat slowly, favoring his left side, his shoulder visibly swollen beneath the thin PT shirt. On the drive, Nathaniel said nothing. He stared through the windshield at a country he had served for 26 years and said absolutely nothing. Simone didn't drive home. She drove to the emergency room. She had every injury formally documented by medical professionals who photographed the bruising, measured the laceration, noted the shoulder inflammation, and entered it into a medical record that would later be submitted as evidence. When they finally pulled into their driveway that afternoon, Elijah was sitting on the front steps. He hadn't stopped shaking since the arrest. That week, the nightmare started. He woke up screaming on the second night. By the fourth night, he stopped sleeping through it all. On the fifth morning, quiet and serious in a way no young child should ever have to be, he asked his father, "Are the men coming back?" Nathaniel didn't have an answer that could fix what had been broken. A child who once felt safe in his own home no longer did, and no settlement, no investigation, and no prosecution would ever fully give that back. Within 48 hours, the United States Marine Corps formally requested a federal investigation through the Department of Defense. The request did not go through normal channels. It went straight to the top. The DHS Inspector General opened an immediate inquiry into the actions of all 4 agents involved. The FBI Civil Rights Division was notified and began coordinating with federal prosecutors. 2 members of the House Armed Services Committee issued public statements demanding a full accounting of how an active duty Marine colonel with top secret clearance was arrested without a warrant, without identification verification, and without even the correct name. Behind closed doors, the language was sharper. A senior Pentagon official told a room of Defense Department attorneys that what happened in that driveway was not a miscommunication. It was a civil rights violation carried out by federal agents against one of their own, and it would be treated as such. Meanwhile, the footage was spreading. The Ring doorbell video appeared first on a military spouse forum, uploaded by a neighbor who had obtained it with the homeowner's permission. Within hours, it was everywhere. The wide-angle footage showed the SUVs skidding to a stop, agents jumping out with weapons drawn, Drummond being forced aground, the zip ties, Elijah running out screaming, Kircher pointing at the child and shouting, Simone arriving in scrubs and demanding a warrant. Cell phone videos filled in angles the doorbell camera couldn't reach, capturing close-up audio of Drummond calmly identifying himself again and again while Kircher refused to listen. The videos reached millions of views within days. National media picked it up by Monday morning. ICE issued a 3-sentence statement that read like it had been drafted by a lawyer who already knew how bad this was going to get. The agency was reviewing the circumstances of a recent enforcement action in Northern Virginia. Operations would be conducted according to law and policy, and there would be no further comment. The statement satisfied no one. It wasn't meant to. It was a placeholder from an agency calculating damage control, and realizing the answer was more than it could afford. Federal investigators pulled Dale Kircher's complete service record within the first week of the inquiry. What they found wasn't a single lapse in judgment. It was a pattern so consistent and deeply embedded, it could only be described as systematic. Over the past 3 years, Kircher had led 141 targeted enforcement actions across Northern Virginia. Of those, 117 targeted Black or Latino individuals, the vast majority living in predominantly white neighborhoods. 34 of those operations resulted in confirmed wrongful detentions. People who were U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents pulled from homes, cars, and daily life and detained without proper verification of identity or status. Kircher had developed a practice of bypassing warrant procedures entirely, instead relying on exigent circumstances, claims written after the fact, sometimes hours after detention had already occurred. fabricated justifications inserted into paperwork to make unlawful actions appear lawful on paper. But the most damning evidence came from inside the agency itself. Internal emails between Kircher and Skaggs recovered during a digital forensics review revealed casual, dehumanizing language that stripped any pretense of professionalism from their work. They referred to black neighborhoods as hunting grounds. They joked about bagging suspects like a weekend sport. In one exchange about an operation in a mixed-income suburb, Kircher wrote, "Easy pickings out there. Nobody fights back when you roll up fast enough." Skaggs replied with a laughing emoji and the words, "Let's go get some." The body camera failures were not occasional oversights. They were routine. Kircher had failed to record on more than 60 documented enforcement actions. Skaggs had gaps on 23. And in every instance where recordings were missing, the operations involved minorities and, in many cases, generated complaints that went nowhere because there was no footage to support them. Kircher's supervisors had been aware of the pattern. They had seen complaint files. They had reviewed demographic data. They had never disciplined him. No written warning, no suspension, not even a conversation. The suspensions came fast once evidence started moving through federal channels. Dale Kircher was suspended without pay pending the outcome of the investigation. Troy Skaggs was suspended the same day. Two supervisors who had signed off on the flawed intelligence packet and ignored years of complaints were placed on administrative leave. Their access to federal systems was revoked. Their credentials were collected. The IC Field Office Director for Northern Virginia issued a public apology carried by every major outlet and immediately criticized as insufficient. He called the incident regrettable and promised a review of internal processes. He did not name Kircher. He did not name Skaggs. He did not acknowledge the 34 prior wrongful detentions, the emails, or the body camera pattern. Congressional hearings were announced within the week. The chair of the House Armed Services Committee called the detention of Colonel Drummond a disgrace to constitutional protections and an insult to the men and women who serve in uniform. A Marine Corps two-star general issued a rare public statement with none of the diplomatic softness of the IC apology, calling the detention without warrant, cause, or basic verification an unconscionable failure that will be pursued to fullest accountability. The statement was read on the floor of Congress the following day. Kircher's attorney appeared on cable news that evening and claimed his client was simply following established protocols. The host asked one follow-up question. Did those protocols include obtaining a warrant? The attorney paused. Did they include verifying the target's identity before making an arrest? Another pause. Did they include activating a body camera as required by federal policy? The attorney declined to answer because the protocols Kircher claimed to follow did not include any of those things, and everyone watching already knew it. Federal indictments came down 6 weeks after the investigation began. A grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia charged Dale Kircher with deprivation of rights under colored law under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, conspiracy to deprive civil rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, and filing false reports tied to fabricated claims of exigent circumstances. Troy Skaggs was indicted as a co-conspirator. The trial lasted 4 weeks. The jury watched the Ring doorbell footage in silence, then cell phone videos from 4 neighbors, then heard Drummond's calm voice identify himself over and over while Kircher dismissed him. They heard a child screaming for his father. Then came the internal emails, the hunting grounds language, the easy pickings line, the laughing emoji, and let's go get some. 34 prior wrongful detention victims testified over 6 days. A Latino father pulled from his car in front of his daughters. A black grandmother detained in her bathrobe, while agents searched for a man who never lived there. A legal resident held for 9 hours without a phone call. Each story different in detail, but identical in structure. The defense argued Kircher acted within the scope of his duties. The jury deliberated for a day and a half and returned guilty on all counts. Kircher was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months in federal prison. Skaggs received 2 years. 2 supervisors were terminated and permanently barred from federal law enforcement. The Drummond family filed a civil rights lawsuit against IC, Kircher, Skaggs, and DHS. The case settled for $4.7 million, one of the largest individual IC misconduct settlements in recent history. Mandated reforms included independent oversight of target enforcement actions, mandatory warrant verification, real-time body camera compliance monitoring, and quarterly demographic audits of field agents' enforcement patterns. Colonel Nathaniel Drummond returned to full active duty at Quantico. His commanding officer told him plainly that what had been done to him was a failure of the system, not a reflection of his service. 6 months later, Drummond was promoted with full honors. Simone pinned a new rank on his collar. Elijah stood beside them, quieter than he used to be, but standing. He had started therapy 3 weeks after the arrest. The nightmares came less often, though they hadn't stopped entirely. His therapist said recovery wasn't a straight line, and that the sense of safety taken from him in his own home would take time to rebuild. Drummond testified before Congress in full Marine dress blues. He spoke about the intersection of military service and civil rights, about what it meant to spend 26 years defending a constitution that could not protect him in his own driveway. Every member of the committee sat in silence as he spoke. The Drummond family established the Drummond Justice Initiative, a nonprofit providing legal defense to citizens wrongfully targeted by federal enforcement agencies. Within its first year, the initiative took on 19 cases. Kircher served his sentence. He never apologized. Skaggs, in a post-sentencing interview, said what Kircher never could. I should have said something. I knew it was wrong, and I followed anyway. Watching that boy run out screaming for his father, I knew right then, and I didn't stop it. They came for him without a warrant, without cause, and without humanity. They forgot that the man on the concrete had spent 26 years defending the country they claimed to serve. And when the system finally turned, it didn't just correct itself. It crushed every career that made it possible. This case was brutal, but the case on the right spirals completely out of. The man who led the operation was Senior Field Agent Dale Kircher, 44, with 16 years inside icy enforcement and removal operations. Kircher had built a reputation within the agency that should have raised alarms long before that morning. He was known among field teams as aggressive, efficient, and untouchable, a combination that, in practice, meant he did whatever he wanted and no one above him cared enough to stop it. Over the past 3 years, 83% of Kircher's targeted enforcement actions had involved Black or Latino individuals living in predominantly white neighborhoods. 7 formal complaints have been filed against him for excessive force, 5 more for unlawful detention. Every single one had been internally reviewed and quietly dismissed with language like inconclusive findings or within operational discretion. Kircher learned the lesson men like him always learn when systems protect them instead of correcting them. He could keep going. His partner that morning was Agent Troy Skaggs, 31, just 4 years on a job and already molded in Kircher's image. Skaggs was eager, reckless, and loyal in the worst possible way. He never questioned a call. He never pushed back on a tactic. He laughed when Kircher laughed, moved when Kircher moved, and stayed silent when silence meant complicity. 2 other agents rode in the second SUV. Junior field officers who stayed near the vehicles and watched the whole thing unfold from the curb. They didn't intervene. They didn't speak up. They stood with their hands on their vests and let it happen, which later made them part of it in the eyes of federal investigators, reviewing every second of that morning. Nathaniel Drummond lay face down on the concrete of his own driveway, wrists pulled behind his back and zip-tied so tight the plastic bit into his skin. His voice was steady and controlled, the voice of a man trained to stay calm when everything around him was falling apart. I'm Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, United States Marine Corps. I'm active duty. You have the wrong person. Kircher didn't look at him. He didn't pause. He didn't check. Yeah, he said, heard that one before. Skaggs crouched beside Drummond and patted him down aggressively, hands moving fast and rough across his PT shirt and shorts, as if a man washing his truck at dawn was concealing something dangerous. That was when the front door flew open. Elijah ran barefoot onto the driveway, screaming, "Dad, what are you doing to my dad?" Kircher spun toward the boy and pointed, "Get back inside now. Do not come out here again." The boy froze, eyes wide, chest heaving. A neighbor across the street, Franklin Oahe, a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who had served 22 years in uniform, stepped off his porch and crossed the road. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. "That man is a colonel in the United States Marine Corps." Kircher's voice turned sharp. "Sir, step back or I will arrest you for obstruction." Another neighbor, 2 houses down, raised her phone and began recording. Kircher didn't notice. Seconds later, a silver sedan turned into the driveway. Dr. Simone Drummond stepped out, still wearing surgical scrubs from her overnight shift. She saw her husband on the ground, zip ties on his wrists, blood on his chin from where his face had hit the concrete. Her training kicked in before her fear did. She pulled out her phone and opened a voice memo. "I am Dr. Simone Drummond. I am observing a laceration to my husband's chin, bruising on both wrists, possible abrasion to his left shoulder. He is face down and restrained." She looked at Kircher. "Where is your warrant?" Kircher stepped toward her. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be detained." Simone didn't move. "Where is your warrant?" she asked again. And for the first time that morning, Kircher had no answer. Kircher finally offered a reason, though it barely qualified as one. He said they were executing a target enforcement action on an individual suspected of immigration fraud and identity theft. Someone allegedly living at that address under a false identity. The name he gave was not Nathaniel Drummond. It wasn't even close. The name belonged to a person who didn't match Drummond's age, his description, or any record tied to that property. Drummond, still face down with zip ties cutting into his wrists, said it again. "This is my house. I've lived here for 9 years. I am a United States citizen born in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am a colonel in the United States Marine Corps. My military ID is in my wallet on the kitchen counter. You can verify everything in 30 seconds." Kircher didn't go inside, didn't send Skaggs a check, didn't radio anyone to run the name. He looked down at Drummond as if his words didn't matter and said, "We'll sort it out at the field office."